All right, good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm going to stop that. That's not okay. Not prepared at all for today. Haven't made my coffee, but this is an important topic, so I figured I'd broach the subject and start talking about the 4 different methods that we as coffee brewers can use, the tools at our disposal to think about how we extract coffee. So let me pick a coffee for this morning. Yeah, let's do this guy. So we have, always gotta smell your coffee. We have your humble coffee bean. Your humble coffee bean. And when we brew coffee, basically what we're doing is we're taking the stuff out of here that we like and putting it into our water so that we can drink it, right? So you take this, you crush it up and put it in water and hope that the good stuff comes out. So there's some amount of control that we have over how much of the good stuff that we get and how much of the bad stuff that we get. So water or coffee, the coffee bean itself by volume is roughly like 28% soluble. That includes water-soluble solids as well as like oils and tannins and other nonsense like that. Now, when we're looking for extraction rates, when we're looking at like how much of the stuff we're pulling out, generally speaking, you're looking between like 18% to like 25% is considered good. But that's a very, oh my God. I've completely forgotten to turn on my magic ball, my crystal ball. There we go. That's a completely subjective aspect to the science, objective, but it doesn't have a huge impact on the subjectivity of your own taste. So test out the different extraction rates and figure that stuff out and play with it based on your taste rather than numbers. Like, yes, I do play with a refractometer. I love playing with my refractometer, but it's designed to be a tool that gives me insight into my own subjective tastes. Anyways, let's get into it. The 4 things that we as coffee brewers can adjust in order to get different extraction. First off is the grind size. So the easiest way to think about this, and actually for all 4 of these, the way you should be thinking about it is like, what changes when I change this thing? Like, is when I'm pouring the water through the coffee, what is different? And is it getting me more of the stuff or less of the stuff in the coffee? So when you grind finer, the surface area of the coffee becomes greater. There's more places for the water to touch the coffee and pull stuff out. So a finer grind will let you get more stuff. A coarser grind has the exact opposite effect and will let you get less stuff. So let's go ahead and grind. And I haven't announced it yet, but Basket Case is the winner for the product name for this. So that's what we're calling it. We're going to shake up the Basket Case. Now, the reason I'm doing this is a side note. The reason I'm doing this is to help eliminate the fines. So like when you grind coffee, no matter how good your grinder is, it will shatter the organic matter that is a coffee bean into teeny tiny little dusty pieces, the pieces of the right size that you want, and then slightly bigger pieces that somehow like slithered their way through the burr grinds. And so you have what are called fines and boulders, and then kind of your target grind size. Shaking out the fines helps you have a more consistent range of grind size particles, and thus all of the water is pulling out roughly the same amount of stuff from each piece, assuming all of the variables are static. And so, but if you have those little dust pieces in there mixed in with your target size pieces, those dust pieces, because they're smaller, will have a greater surface area and therefore will have more extraction. So you'll end up with a wider range of mixed extractions. So you'll have some of your coffee liquid is over extracted, some of it is right on point, and then of course with the boulders, some of it is under extracted. So we're just shaking it up. I've shaked it up way too much. All right, the second thing that we as coffee brewers can play with is water temperature. So obviously, water temperature. The higher the temperature, the more quickly compounds within the coffee will break apart and come into the water. The more quickly soluble solids will dissolve and become soluble. The lower the water temperature, the slower that process happens. And there are certain compounds and tannins and blah, 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 things that I don't fully understand. There are certain parts of the coffee that are capable of being extracted, but require a certain temperature in order to even break apart from the organic, like solid mass matter of coffee. So when you think about it, what you should be thinking about for water temperature is, okay, if I increase the water temperature, I'm going to get more stuff out faster. If I decrease the water temperature, I'm going to get less stuff out slower. All right, then the third thing that we can control is the brew time. So how long the coffee is touching the water. The longer it's touching the water, the more chance it has to pull things from the coffee. The less time it spends touching the coffee, the less chance it has of pulling stuff from it. And that's why things like, so if you have cold brew has a very low temperature, but it has just all the time in the world to get all the things. So everything that can be extracted from at that temperature for cold brew, at room temperature or colder, it will extract. But everything that does not break down at that level of, at that temperature, it won't extract. So that's why cold brew is such it's essentially in a class of its own. It's got this whole different approach to extracting certain things from coffee. But for most hot brews, generally speaking, you're looking for around 4 to 5 minutes of extraction. Now, the last thing that doesn't have a direct impact on extraction, but has a direct impact on both the taste, the actual flavor that we are experiencing as our little teeny tiny human taste buds do their thing, but also, depending on the brew method, it can have an impact on the length of the brew time, and that is your ratio of coffee to water. So for example, if everything, like if the grind size is the same, the water temperature is the same, and my brew time is the same, and that's where it gets a little bit tricky, I add in more coffee to this pour over, then overall it will be a slower pour. Like it will slow down the length of time, it will increase the length of time that water is touching the coffee, because there's more coffee to go through. That flow rate slows down. So thinking about your ratio of coffee to water is also an incredibly important factor. The more water you add, the more stuff it will get out if all the other variables are static. So water to coffee ratio is also very important. So today I think we're going to be doing a 1 to 15-ish, 1 to 16. That's what I've decided is good for this coffee. And it is a secret coffee. I'm not telling you what it is today. But yeah, okay, so that's it. I'm not going to bore you with the brewing that I am doing today. But to quickly recap, those 4 things that we have are the size of the grind, the temperature of the water, the length of extraction, and the ratio of coffee to water. Now, for every particular brew method out there, there are other little quirks and things that you have to pay attention to in order to adjust those. And each one of them is interlaced in such a way that it impacts, like if you change one, it impacts the other to a certain degree. So it's a science and an art at the same time. You have to figure out your own dance for making those adjustments. But yeah, there you go. I think that's all I'm going to talk about today. Maybe tomorrow we'll talk about what you're tasting. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe next time. We'll talk about what you're tasting and how to approach which variable you should be looking to change. Stay caffeinated. I can't do this. I can't close this while I'm looking at the camera.